I never thought my mother's old art supplies would change everything. But there I was choking on dust in our cramped attic when I found the box that would tear my family apart. My name's Harper, and until that moment, I was just another disappointed daughter trying to live up to impossible expectations. You know the type, straight A's aren't good enough, extracurriculars aren't impressive enough, and God forbid you have dreams of your own. I was supposed to be looking for my sister Claire's old calculus textbooks. Instead, I found myself staring at a battered cardboard box labeled Margaret's Art. Do not throw away in my grandmother's messy handwriting. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside, dozens of sketches and paintings lay carefully preserved between sheets of tissue paper. They were incredible portraits capturing raw emotion, landscapes bursting with color, abstract pieces that made my heart ache. And they were all signed by my mother. "What are you doing up there?" Mom's voice floated up from below, making me jump. "Just looking for Claire's books." I called back, quickly gathering some of the artwork. "I'll be down in a minute." "Well, hurry up. Your father will be home soon. And you know how he feels about tardiness at dinner." Did I ever? Dad's rules were carved in stone. Dinner at 6 sharp, phones off the table, and everyone better have something impressive to report about their day. Usually, that meant Claire talking about her latest academic achievement, while I tried to shrink into my chair. I tucked 3 of Mom's paintings into my sweater and carefully replaced the box. My mind was spinning. In 18 years, I'd never seen Mom pick up a paintbrush. She was always just Mom, the one who kept our schedule running like clockwork, who nodded along with Dad's lectures about practical career choices, who gently suggested I focus more on my business classes than my art electives. At dinner that night, I couldn't stop stealing glances at her. Dad was in rare form, practically glowing as he announced Claire's acceptance into some prestigious Master of Business Administration program. "Following in your old man's footsteps," he beamed, raising his glass. "This is what happens when you apply yourself to something worthwhile." I pushed my food around my plate, feeling the weight of Mom's artwork against my ribs where I'd hidden it under my clothes. "Mom, I didn't know you used to paint," I blurted out. The clinking of silverware stopped. Mom's face went pale, and Dad's expression hardened slightly. "That was a long time ago," she said quietly. "But these paintings I found." "Harper." Dad's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Your mother made the right choice to focus on more important things. Just like you need to focus on bringing up that economics grade." I looked at Mom hoping for something. Support? Recognition? But she just smiled, that same tight smile she always wore during these conversations, and asked Claire about her housing plans for graduate school. Later that night, I spread Mom's paintings across my bed. There was so much life in them, so much passion. What had happened to that version of my mother? And more importantly, was I staring at my own future? My phone buzzed, a text from my grandmother, Evelyn. "Coming to visit next week. Have something important to discuss about your Uncle Nathaniel. Don't tell your father." I glanced at Mom's signature on one of the paintings, then at the acceptance letter from the art school I'd hidden in my desk drawer. Something was shifting in our perfectly ordered world, and I wasn't sure if I was more excited or terrified. One thing was certain, I couldn't let my art die in a box in the attic. Not like Mom did. Even if it meant going to war with my own family. I waited until Dad left for work the next morning before cornering Mom in the kitchen. The paintings I'd found were spread across the counter between us like evidence at a crime scene. She stared at them, hands wrapped around her coffee mug so tight I thought it might shatter. "They're beautiful," I said softly. "Why did you stop?" Mom traced a finger along the edge of one painting. A vibrant street scene with people caught mid-motion, their faces full of life. "Sometimes we make choices, Harper. Adult choices." "That's not an answer." "No." She looked up, and for a second I saw something fierce in her eyes. "What about your choice to hide your art school acceptance letter?" I stumbled back, my heart pounding. "How did you?" "I was putting away your laundry last week." She took a sip of coffee, her hand steadier now. "Don't worry, your father doesn't know." Before I could respond, Claire walked in, already dressed for her internship interview. She stopped short when she saw the paintings. "Holy shit, Mom. These are incredible." "Language," Mom said automatically, but there was no force behind it. Claire picked up one of the portraits, a young woman with wild hair and defiant eyes. Is this Grandma Evelyn? Mom nodded. From before she married your grandfather. Back when she was still performing in that folk band of hers. Wait, what? I leaned closer to the painting. Grandma was in a band? There's a lot you don't know about this family, Mom said, and something in her tone made me look up. She was staring at her phone, her face suddenly tight. Speaking of which, your Uncle Nathaniel is coming to dinner tonight. Claire and I exchanged glances. Uncle Nathaniel rarely came to family dinners, and when he did, Dad always ended up in his home office afterward, making angry phone calls about stock prices and market shares. Does Dad know? Claire asked. He will. Mom started gathering up the paintings with quick, efficient movements. Harper, help me put these away before he gets home. But Mom. Now Harper. That evening I sat at our formal dining table, watching Uncle Nathaniel cut into his steak with surgical precision. He'd always reminded me of a shark. All smooth movements and calculated smiles. So Claire, he said, I hear you're following the family tradition. Master of Business Administration at Harrison Business School. Yes, Uncle. Claire's voice was perfect, polite, engaged, everything Dad wanted. But under the table, her leg was bouncing nervously against mine. Excellent choice. Though I suppose Thomas wouldn't have it any other way. Nathaniel's eyes slid to me. And what about you, Harper? Still dabbling in. What was it? Art. Dad's fork scraped against his plate. Harper's focusing on her core subjects now. Aren't you, sweetheart? I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, Mom cut in. Actually, Harper's quite talented. She reminds me of myself at that age. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad stared at Mom like she'd started speaking in tongues. Uncle Nathaniel's smile widened slightly. Ah yes, the artist gene. It runs in our side of the family, doesn't it, Margaret? Though some of us learn to put aside childish things. Is that what you did, Nathaniel? Mom's voice was quiet but sharp. Put aside childish things? Like ethics? Business integrity? Margaret. Dad's warning tone filled the room. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another text from Grandma Evelyn. Don't trust anything your uncle says about the company. Keep your eyes open. I looked up to find Uncle Nathaniel watching me. His expression unreadable. You know, Harper, he said. There are many ways to pursue art. The corporate world can be quite creative. Perhaps you'd like to intern at my company this summer? See how the other side lives. Dad's knuckles went white around his wine glass. Claire kicked me under the table. Thank you, I said carefully. But I have other plans. Do you? Uncle Nathaniel's smile never wavered. Well, plans can change. Just ask your mother. Mom stood up so suddenly her chair nearly fell. I think it's time for dessert. As she fled to the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of her face. She wasn't just angry, she was scared. And suddenly, I understood that my discovery in the attic had uncovered more than just old paintings. It had cracked open something dark and dangerous, something that had been simmering in my family for years. And now I had to choose. Keep digging or bury it all back in the attic where it belonged. Grandma Evelyn arrived like a storm front, sweeping into our house with her usual mix of flowing scarves and unsolicited opinions. I found her in the kitchen that morning, making coffee with Mom and speaking in the kind of hushed tones that always meant trouble. Your brother is planning something, Margaret, Grandma said, not noticing me in the doorway. The board meetings, the private investors, it's all connected. Mom's face went pale. Evelyn, please. Not now. Yes, now. Grandma turned and spotted me. Harper, perfect timing. Come sit with us. I slid into a chair, watching Mom's hands shake as she poured more coffee. Is this about Uncle Nathaniel? It's about everything, Grandma said. Your uncle's been systematically buying up shares in your father's company through shell corporations. He's planning a hostile takeover. Mom! Mom slammed the coffee pot down. She's 18. She doesn't need to be involved in this. She's already involved. We all are. Grandma pulled out her phone, showing us a series of emails. Nathaniel's been using information from your old art circle, Margaret. Those gallery owners you used to know? He's been gathering dirt on Thomas through them for years. My stomach lurched. What kind of dirt? The kind that could destroy your father's reputation. And your mother's. Before anyone could explain further, Claire burst through the door, her face flushed with excitement. Harper, I just got the most amazing news. I was talking to my academic advisor about your portfolio, and she thinks. She stopped short, finally reading the room. Mom's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. What portfolio? Mom asked. Claire's eyes went wide. Oh God, Harper, I'm so sorry. I thought they knew about the art school acceptance. The silence that followed was like a vacuum, sucking all the air from the room. Then Dad's voice came from behind me, quiet and deadly. What art school acceptance? I turned slowly. He stood in the doorway, still in his running clothes from his morning jog. His face was unreadable. Thomas, Mom started, but he held up a hand. Harper. Explain. My voice came out surprisingly steady. I applied to the Rhode Island School of Design. I got in. Full scholarship. I see. He stepped into the kitchen, his running shoes squeaking against the tile. And when were you planning to tell me that you've been wasting time on applications instead of focusing on your economics grade? Thomas, Grandma cut in. This isn't the time. Stay out of this, Evelyn. This is between me and my daughter. He turned back to me. Well, something snapped inside me. Maybe it was the emails on Grandma's phone or Mom's trembling hands, or the way Claire looked like she wanted to disappear. I wasn't going to tell you, I said, because you never listen. You didn't listen when Mom wanted to keep painting, and you're not listening now when your own brother-in-law is trying to destroy you. Dad's face went from red to white. What are you talking about? Nathaniel, Grandma said, standing up. He's making his move, Thomas. And he's using Margaret's past to do it. Dad looked at Mom. Really looked at her, maybe for the first time in years. Margaret. I'm sorry, Mom whispered. The people I used to know from my art days. I never thought Nathaniel would. Would what? Dad's voice was dangerous now. Would use your old connections to spy on me? Would manipulate my family? Would try to take everything I've built. Everything you've built? I stood up so fast my chair toppled backward. What about what Mom gave up? What about what you're making Claire give up? What about? Enough. Dad slammed his hand on the counter. You will withdraw your art school acceptance immediately. I won't have another dreamer in this family throwing away their future on pretty pictures. Thomas. Mom's voice cracked like a whip. We all turned to stare at her. She was standing now too. Her hands steady for the first time all morning. That's enough. But it was too late. I was already moving, grabbing my keys and phone. Claire called after me, but I didn't stop. I could hear Dad and Grandma arguing, Mom's voice rising above them both, but it all faded as I ran to my car. I had one last glimpse of them through the kitchen window, my perfect broken family, finally showing its true colors. Then I turned the key in the ignition and drove away, leaving everything I thought I knew behind me. I ended up at the old art supply store downtown, the one place I could always think clearly. The bell chimed as I pushed through the door, and the familiar smell of paint and canvas wrapped around me like a blanket. My phone buzzed again, the 20th call from Claire in the last hour, but I ignored it. You look like you've seen a ghost, said Marcus, the elderly owner who'd been supplying me with contraband art supplies for years. He was arranging brushes in the front display, his arthritis-curved fingers moving with surprising grace. Just family stuff, I muttered, heading for my usual spot in the sketch corner. Family stuff that has Thomas Winslow's daughter hiding in my shop at 10 in the morning? Before I could answer, the bell chimed again. Uncle Nathaniel walked in, looking completely out of place in his tailored suit. Harper, he said smoothly, your father's worried sick. I'm sure he is. I gripped my sketchbook tighter. How did you find me? Claire mentioned this was your sanctuary. He picked up a charcoal pencil, turning it in his hands. You know, your mother used to come here too. Before she married your father. Marcus shuffled closer, his usual friendly demeanor replaced by something harder. Can I help you find something, sir? No need. Uncle Nathaniel set down the pencil. I'm here to help my niece understand her options. I understand my options just fine, I said, but my voice shook. Do you? He pulled out his phone, showing me a series of documents. Your father's company is built on sand, Harper. One push and it all comes down. Unless what? Unless someone convinces the board that new leadership is needed. Someone young, someone with artistic sensibilities. Someone who could bridge the gap between business and culture. I stared at him. You want me to help you take over Dad's company? I want to give you everything you've ever wanted. Art school, galleries, complete creative freedom. All you have to do is tell the board about your father's questionable business practices. What questionable practices? His smile turned sharp. The ones we'll create evidence for. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Grandma Evelyn. Don't trust him. Coming to get you. Stay put. Think about it, Uncle Nathaniel continued. Your father would rather destroy your dreams than support them. Why protect him? Marcus cleared his throat. I think you should leave, sir. Of course. Uncle Nathaniel straightened his tie. But Harper, remember, your father gave your mother the same choice once. Art or family. Look how that turned out. After he left, I sat there shaking until Grandma arrived. She took one look at me and pulled me into a fierce hug. He offered you a deal, didn't he? I nodded against her shoulder. How did you know? Because he made the same offer to your mother 20 years ago. That's why she stopped painting. Grandma pulled back, her eyes fierce. He threatened to expose some of Thomas's early business dealings if she didn't give up her art career. She chose to protect your father, and Nathaniel's been bitter about it ever since. But why? Why does he care so much about destroying Dad? Because your father chose Margaret over him. They were business partners first before Thomas met your mother. Nathaniel never forgave either of them for falling in love. My phone lit up with a text from Claire. Dad's drinking. Mom's crying. Please come home. I can't go back, I whispered. Not after everything that's happened. Grandma squeezed my hand. Then don't. Come stay with me. We'll figure this out together. But Dad, your father needs to learn that control isn't love. She picked up my sketchbook. And you need to learn that choosing yourself isn't betrayal. I looked around the art store, at the supplies that had been my refuge for so long. Uncle Nathaniel's offer hung in the air like smoke, tempting and toxic. I could destroy my father's company, get everything I wanted, and make him feel as helpless as he'd made me feel. Or I could find another way. Okay, I said finally. I'll come with you. But first I need to make a stop. Where? I picked up my phone, typing out a message to Claire. Meet me at Mom's old gallery. Bring her paintings. All of them. It's time to fight back. The old gallery looked exactly like Mom's paintings, faded glory wrapped in dust and regret. Claire was already waiting outside, clutching the box of artwork to her chest like a shield. Dad's furious, she said as I approached. He's talking about cutting you off completely. Let him. I pulled out the gallery keys Grandma had given me. Did anyone follow you? No, but Uncle Nathaniel called. He knows what we're doing. The lock clicked open, releasing a wave of musty air. Inside, empty walls stretched into shadows, picture hooks waiting like tiny accusations. I flipped on the lights, revealing the ghost of what used to be Mom's artistic home. Help me hang these, I said, pulling out the first painting. Claire hesitated. Harper, maybe we should think about this. Uncle Nathaniel said. Uncle Nathaniel is trying to destroy our family. Is he? Claire set down the box. Or is Dad doing that all by himself? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Where are you? Your father's meeting with the board tomorrow. Nathaniel's making his move. Perfect timing, I muttered, starting to hang the paintings. What are you planning? Claire asked, finally helping me. A wake-up call. Dad needs to see what his precious control has cost this family. I stepped back, studying the arrangement. Did you bring the photos? Claire pulled out an envelope. Inside were pictures of Mom from her gallery days, young, vibrant, surrounded by admirers at her shows. The same fire I'd seen in her paintings burned in her eyes. She was amazing, Claire whispered. She still is. She just forgot. The gallery door chimed. We both spun around to find Uncle Nathaniel standing there, looking pleased. Now this is interesting, he said, walking in slowly. A tribute to Margaret's lost dreams? How poetic. Get out, I snapped. I'm trying to help you, Harper. Both of you. He turned to Claire. Did you know your father's company is built on stolen ideas? Ideas he took from me while dating your mother. Claire's face went pale. That's not true. No. He pulled out his phone. I have proof. Documents, emails, witnesses. Tomorrow it all comes out at the board meeting. Unless. Unless what? I demanded. Unless you both help me take control. Claire's business acumen, your artistic vision, we could rebuild something better. Something honest. There's nothing honest about blackmail. Grandma's voice cut through the gallery. She stood in the doorway, looking fiercer than her age should allow. Hello, Mother, Uncle Nathaniel said coldly. Still fighting other people's battles? Still trying to own what isn't yours? She walked in, standing between us. You never could accept that Margaret chose Thomas over you. Claire gasped softly beside me. The pieces suddenly clicked. Uncle Nathaniel's bitterness, his obsession with destroying Dad's company, the way he always watched Mom at family gatherings. You were in love with her, I said. His smile turned ugly. I was her partner. In art, in business, in everything. Then your father swept in with his big plans and corporate dreams. And Mom chose him, Claire finished. She chose wrong. He gestured at the paintings. Look at what she gave up. Look at what your father took from her. My phone buzzed again, Dad, this time. Come home, please. We need to talk. I looked at the paintings on the wall, at Mom's captured dreams and lost possibilities. Then at Claire, who seemed torn between her Master of Business Administration future and this new understanding of our family's past. At Grandma, standing strong against her own son's bitterness. At Uncle Nathaniel, whose revenge had poisoned 2 decades of family history. You're right, I said finally. Mom gave up too much. But that's not Dad's fault. It's yours. Excuse me. You made her choose. Art or family. Just like you're making us choose now. I picked up my phone. But we're not, Mom. And I'm done letting men decide what I can create. I hit dial on Dad's number, watching Uncle Nathaniel's face darken. What are you doing? Fighting back, I said as the phone rang. But not your way. Claire stepped up beside me, her hand finding mine. Together, we watched our uncle realize he'd just lost his last chance at revenge. And somehow, standing in Mom's old gallery surrounded by her art, that felt like the first real victory we'd had in years. The board meeting looked like a funeral, and maybe it was. I stood at the back of the conference room, watching Dad face the people who could destroy everything he'd built. Mom sat rigid beside him, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. Claire squeezed my arm as Uncle Nathaniel took the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. I've called this emergency meeting to discuss some disturbing information about Thomas Winslow's business practices. Dad's face remained stone still, but I saw his finger tap against the table. His one tell when he was scared. The board members leaned forward, vultures scenting blood. Before you continue, Nathaniel, I stepped forward, my heart hammering. I have something to show everyone. Uncle Nathaniel's smile flickered. This is hardly the time for amateur art presentations, Harper. But I was already connecting my laptop to the projector. The first image filled the screen, Mom's painting of Dad from 20 years ago, young and determined in his first office. Then another. Dad helping Mom set up her gallery opening. Another. Both of them reviewing business plans at our kitchen table. My mother documented everything, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Every meeting, every idea, every collaboration. She didn't just give up art for the company. She used it to tell the truth. The board members murmured, studying the images. Uncle Nathaniel's face darkened. These prove nothing, he snapped. Actually, Claire stood, pulling out a USB drive. They prove everything. I've spent the last week going through Mom's old gallery records. The dates, the meetings, the witnesses, they all match Dad's version of events, not yours. Uncle Nathaniel lunged for the drive, but Grandma was faster. She snatched it and handed it to the board chairman. My son, she said clearly, has been lying to you all for 20 years. The room erupted in chaos. Security appeared to escort Uncle Nathaniel out as he shouted threats and accusations. The board members huddled over laptops, reviewing evidence. Through it all, Dad sat motionless, staring at Mom's paintings on the screen. I thought we'd won. I really did. Then Uncle Nathaniel broke free from security. You want truth? He snarled, pulling out his phone. Here's truth. He pressed play on a video. Mom in her old gallery, young and passionate, telling someone off camera that she was choosing art over business, that she couldn't marry Thomas Winslow, that she wouldn't give up her dreams. The date stamp showed it was filmed the day before their wedding. The room went silent. Dad turned to Mom, his face unreadable. "Margaret." "It was a moment of doubt," she whispered. "Just a moment. Nathaniel filmed it without my knowledge. You told me you chose us. That you wanted this life. I did choose you. I choose you every day." Uncle Nathaniel's laugh was ugly. "She chose safety, security, just like Harper's choosing now, pretending her little art dreams don't matter more than family loyalty." "That's not," I started, but Dad cut me off. "All these years," he said quietly, "I thought I was protecting you, both of you, from struggling, from failing. But I was just afraid. Afraid you'd realize you made the wrong choice, Margaret. Afraid you'd leave Harper. Afraid I'd lose everything I loved because I couldn't understand what really mattered." He stood up, straightening his tie. "The board can review all the evidence. They'll find that every business decision was legal and documented. But they'll also find that I failed at something more important, seeing the art in the people I love." Uncle Nathaniel sneered. "How touching. But sentiment doesn't change facts. Your company." "My company," Dad interrupted, "is built on partnership. With Margaret. With my daughters. Even with you once. I forgot that somewhere along the way." He turned to me. "Harper, I'm sorry. For everything. But especially for not seeing that your art isn't a betrayal of our family. It's the heart of it." For a moment hope flared. Then Uncle Nathaniel played his final card. "Too late for apologies, Thomas. The press already has everything, the video, the accusations, the family drama. By morning, your reputation will be destroyed. Your precious legacy? Gone. And this time, no amount of pretty pictures can save you." He was right. I could see it in Dad's face, in Mom's tears, in Claire's desperate grip on my arm. We'd won the battle but lost the war. Our family's name, Dad's company, Mom's sacrifice. It would all be tabloid fodder by sunrise. Unless I found a way to turn art into armor one last time. I found Uncle Nathaniel in Mom's old gallery, exactly where I knew he'd be. He stood surrounded by her paintings, phone in hand, probably crafting the press release that would destroy our family. "You really think art is weakness, don't you?" I said, making him jump. "Harper." He recovered quickly, smiling that shark smile. "Come to beg for mercy?" "No." I walked to the center of the gallery, where I'd set up my easel earlier. "I came to paint." He laughed. "Now? Your family's about to lose everything, and you want to doodle." I picked up my brush. Mom didn't choose Dad over art. She chose to tell stories a different way. Through documents, through records, through truth. That's what these paintings really show. Truth. He spat the word. "The truth is your father stole everything from me. My ideas, my partner, your sister." I started sketching quick, angry strokes. "Mom wasn't your property. Neither was the company. Neither am I." His phone buzzed. "Too late anyway. The press release goes live in 10 minutes. By morning, everyone will know about Thomas Winslow's fraudulent empire and his family's desperate cover-up. They'll know something better." Claire's voice came from the doorway. She stood with her laptop open, live streaming everything. "They'll know how far a bitter man will go to destroy what he couldn't control." Uncle Nathaniel lunged for her, but Mom stepped in front of her, holding up her old camera. "I recorded everything, Nathaniel. Every threat. Every manipulation. Every lie you told about Thomas." Her voice shook, but her hands were steady. "I never stopped being an artist. I just learned to capture different kinds of truth." "No one will believe you," he snarled, but his eyes darted between the cameras and my canvas. "They'll believe this." I turned my easel around. The painting was rough but powerful. Uncle Nathaniel standing among Mom's art, his phone raised like a weapon, surrounded by the ghosts of his own choices. In the background, barely visible, was a younger version of him watching Mom and Dad fall in love. "You think a painting will save you?" He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "No," Dad said, stepping into the gallery. "The truth will save us. All of it. Even the parts that hurt." He walked to Mom's old wedding portrait. The one she'd painted the day after Uncle Nathaniel filmed her moment of doubt. I was scared too, Dad said quietly. Scared I wasn't good enough for her. Scared she'd regret choosing me over Art. But I was wrong, she never chose one over the other. She found a way to be both. Just like Harper has. How touching, Uncle Nathaniel sneered, raising his phone. But in 1 minute, none of this will matter. Actually, Claire turned her laptop around, showing the company's website. It already does. Our live stream has gone viral. Your emails are public. Your fake evidence is exposed. And Harper's painting? It's trending. Uncle Nathaniel's phone clattered to the floor. He stared at the growing view count, at the comments flooding in, at his carefully constructed revenge crumbling in real time. You can't, he whispered. I won't let you. Let go, Nathaniel, Grandma said from the doorway. Before you lose the only thing you have left, your family. He looked around the gallery, at Mom's art telling our family's story, at Claire's technology spreading the truth, at my painting capturing his pain and betrayal. 20 years of bitterness reflected back at him from every angle. His shoulders sagged. I loved her, he said finally, looking at Mom. Both of them. The company. The dream. Everything. I know, Mom said softly. But love isn't ownership. It's creation. She picked up a brush and handed it to him. For a moment he stood frozen. Then slowly he set down his phone and took the brush. The press release? Claire asked. Delete it, he said quietly. All of it. As Claire's fingers flew over her keyboard, I added the final stroke to my painting. A small light breaking through the darkness around Uncle Nathaniel's figure. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of understanding. Sometimes the greatest art comes from the deepest wounds, and sometimes healing starts with a single brush stroke. 6 months later, I stood in the transformed gallery space, watching Dad adjust Mom's newest painting on the wall. The place had changed. No more dust, no more ghosts. Now it was filled with light and life, a perfect blend of Mom's classic pieces and my contemporary work. A little to the left, Claire called from her desk, not looking up from her laptop. She'd turned the gallery's back office into her startup headquarters, claiming she could manage both her Master of Business Administration and a digital art platform. Somehow she was making it work. Perfect, Mom said, stepping back to admire the hanging. She had paint on her cheek, just like when I was little. These days she usually did. The door chimed and Uncle Nathaniel walked in. He looked different, less sharp edges, more human. The court-mandated therapy was probably helping. The renovation looks good, he said quietly, hands in his pockets. Dad tensed slightly but nodded. They weren't friends, probably never would be. But they'd found a way to coexist, mostly through Mom's persistence and Grandma's stern supervision. Harper's piece is the centerpiece, Mom told him, pointing to my latest work, a massive canvas showing our family through different lenses, business meetings morphing into art galleries, spreadsheets flowing into paint strokes, all of us connected by lines of light and shadow. It's honest, Uncle Nathaniel said, studying it. That's important. Speaking of honest, Claire piped up. Your company's new art initiative is trending. People love the idea of combining tech and traditional art. He almost smiled. Turns out there's more than one way to build something worthwhile. The gallery door chimed again. A group of art students filed in, my classmates from RISD, here for our collaborative show. Dad watched them set up their pieces, his expression thoughtful. You were right, he said suddenly, turning to me. About everything. Art isn't just pretty pictures. Truth. Connection. Even business. Does this mean you're finally letting me paint your office mural? He laughed, a real laugh, not the type business chuckle I grew up with. One step at a time. Mom slipped her hand into his, leaving a smudge of paint on his expensive suit. He didn't seem to mind. Grandma appeared with her signature terrible timing, carrying a dusty box. Look what I found in my attic. Inside were Dad's old sketches, rough drawings of product designs, company logos, dreams scribbled in margins. Art in its own way. I was afraid, he admitted, touching one of the sketches. Afraid of anything that couldn't be controlled or measured. Afraid of ending up like. He glanced at Uncle Nathaniel, who was helping a student adjust their lighting. Fear makes us forget who we are, Mom said softly. But art helps us remember. Claire closed her laptop. Speaking of remembering, Harper's acceptance letter came. My heart stopped. The graduate program in Paris, the one combining business and fine arts, the one I'd applied to without telling anyone. Dad picked up the envelope. For a moment, I saw the old him surface, the one who demanded perfect grades and practical choices. Then he handed it to me. Whatever it says, he said, we're proud of you. I opened it slowly, feeling the weight of everything that had brought us here. Mom's hidden paintings, Claire's secret support, Grandma's fierce love, even Uncle Nathaniel's bitter lessons about the price of control. I got in. The gallery erupted in congratulations, but I watched Dad's face. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Paris, he said. Your mother always wanted to paint there. Mom squeezed his hand. Maybe I still will. I looked around the gallery, at my family finding new ways to blend art and business, truth and dreams, past and future. At Uncle Nathaniel, slowly learning to create instead of control. At Claire, building bridges between different worlds. The light through the windows caught my latest painting, highlighting the connections between us all. Some were strong, some still healing, some permanently changed. But together they made something beautiful. Something true. Something worth fighting for.